European leaders are holding follow-up meetings after Monday's summit with U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The discussions are centered on the outcomes from Washington's events and how to proceed with security guarantees for Kyiv. The talks are aimed at ending Russia's three-year war on Ukraine. A president of the European Council, António Costa, told reporters a short while ago that Europe is ready to do its part to help secure Ukraine. He said he'd like to see similar security guarantees for Kyiv to the ones NATO members enjoy.
We are working hand in hand with the United States. Their commitment to participate in the security guarantees with the Europeans and other like-minded countries is a very important step. A very welcome step. The European Union will do its part. I won't hide that we face a difficult road ahead, but I'm reassured by the unity and determination I could feel around the table today.
All right, lots to unpack there. Let's go now to our Brussels correspondent, Teri Schultz. Teri, European Council President Costa, we just heard, says that U.S. support would be needed to secure Ukraine. What kind of U.S. involvement is he talking about there?
And that really is the biggest change in recent days, Brent, that the U.S. has gone from telling Europe, basically, you're going to be on your own with providing these security guarantees for Ukraine, to saying, we'll help, you'll have our backup. Now, we don't really know what exactly they're willing to offer yet. The Europeans have always been very open about the fact that they need what they call U.S. backstops. And that is a lot of technical issues. The U.S. has the best intelligence and surveillance. So you would need those kind of capabilities to know exactly what the Russians are doing on the ground if you were to have a reassurance force made up of European troops there. And you also would want the U.S. to commit to come in retaliation if there was any attack from Russians on Europeans on the ground. And those are things that we aren't exactly sure of yet, but they're the most common things mentioned when you talk about what kind of support the U.S. could give to the Europeans.
In fact, President Trump was asked several times yesterday at the White House whether he's willing to send U.S. soldiers to Ukraine. I mean, did he give a clear answer to that? And I'm wondering, what about the European leaders? Are they thinking about sending their own troops to Ukraine?
Yesterday, President Trump very much kept hopes alive that he would consider sending American troops to Ukraine as part of this reassurance force eventually. Today, he basically dashed that hope because he said on American television this morning that he's not planning on sending U.S. troops. So that, again, would fall to the Europeans as expected. And it's not a popular idea. Nobody really wants to put their forces into a situation which very much could put them in harm's way. You don't know what Russia's going to do. There's not a lot of trust in any peace deal that Moscow would sign at this point. But leaders have said that they are willing to do it. That's what the coalition of the willing is, led by the UK and France. They're looking now at what kind of sort of parameters they could accept, what kind of safety measures would be taken, and what would be done in response if something happened to these troops on the ground. And they're also looking at what numbers would be necessary. It depends on what the role would be of those troops. But all of these things are very much in the air. There are so many unanswered questions, Brent.
Yeah, you can say that again. I mean, there's a lot of talk right now about Ukraine's partners giving it NATO-style guarantees. Do we know what that even means?
No, I haven't heard anything called NATO style because, of course, Article 5 is this ironclad guarantee that your partners, your allies come to your defense if you feel attacked. Now, if partners were willing to give that to Ukraine, they would allow it in NATO. So we know that they're not. And if you really talk about NATO style, again, that would include the United States. And we're, again, not sure that the United States would be willing to come physically to Ukraine's defense if it were attacked again after an eventual peace deal. So it's very unclear what NATO style means. I think what the Europeans hope it means is that the U.S. would pitch in if Ukraine were attacked after Russia agreed to peace. Again, we're talking about eventualities that don't seem to be in the nearest of futures so far.
Yeah, lots of unanswered questions tonight. DW's Brussels correspondent Teri Schultz. Teri, as always, thank you.
Well, during that summit in Washington, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stressed the need for a ceasefire.
We all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that, and let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today, are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on.
For more on this, we can bring in Matthias Winkler here. He's a member of the German parliament for the conservative CSU party, which is part of the current government. He serves on the Bundestag's Foreign Affairs and EU Relations committees. Welcome to DW. Now, Chancellor Merz and other European leaders want a ceasefire before talks continue, but the Russian and American leaders say a ceasefire is not necessary to negotiate a peace deal. What can Germany and its partners do under these circumstances to get a ceasefire?
Yeah, Teri, thank you very much for having me. I think it's hard to imagine to negotiate because peace talks will take a while, will take some weeks, months maybe. It's hard to imagine that during these talks, these negotiations where Ukrainians are involved and US part and Russia, that the Russian aggression goes on and the attacks on Kyiv. And what we experienced the last 3.5 years, each time when a European leader or someone who liked or who wanted to talk to Trump or, to talk to Putin and wanted to find some way to negotiate, then the attacks were even stronger afterwards. This was each time the case. And I think in this light, it's very important to stress or to try to convince them to having a ceasefire before negotiations start.
Now, President Trump said the U.S. is willing to contribute to security guarantees for Ukraine. He wasn't very clear on that, but saying it's primarily Europe's responsibility, security guarantees for Ukraine. How do you see it?
In this case, he's absolutely right, because it's not only about Ukraine. So if there are security guarantees, these apply to the whole of Europe. So what we need is a new security architecture in Europe. And of course, there we are much more responsible than we have been in the past. So why should 350 million US American taxpayers pay for our 450 million European or UK included 500 million European taxpayer security? So therefore, he is absolutely right. Unfortunately, the bad news for us is we have to invest much more. So the time when we thought that wars are far in the past or far away have gone, and we need a new era of armament in Germany and in the other European countries. This is bad news, but here Donald Trump is absolutely right. And it was also the case during Obama and Biden time. But so now he is much more outspoken. And I think now the last has understood.
What can Germany contribute to help secure peace for Ukraine? Will Germany contribute troops to help keep the peace there if a peace deal is struck?
I think this is not a question that is on the table right now. But of course, if there might be any solution where there's a mandate of either NATO or European troops, it will not be a unilateral, bilateral peace guarantee for the security. So it will be EU, NATO, maybe OSCE or something like that. And then if there is the German participation is needed, then of course we will contribute as much as we can.
What are Germany's red lines for securing peace in Ukraine?
I think we shouldn't talk about red lines. So it depends on the peace deal. It depends if it's a just and fair deal, to use Donald Trump's language. And then the peace should not be it should be not so unstable that it has to be defended day by day. So I hope for a solution that both sides can respect, and that this will not be frozen conflict like we had others that is tending to reignite each minute, and we have to have a robust mandate to keep peace. So this should not be the outcome of the peace deal or of the peace negotiations, and therefore I'm quite optimistic that finally then any security guarantee can be provided by Europeans.
Mr. Winkler, thank you very much for talking with us today. That was Tobias Winkler, a member of the German Bundestag with the CSU party.
Thank you, Teri, for having me. Bye.